Is broker tech collusion like the reason why rates are so low and why volumes are so awful right now? Like, I've seen this so often. Is this the reason?
Yes. No,
Short answer, yes.
No. There are too many brokers and too many carriers. We brokers and carriers there was so much freight, and the rates were so good during 2020 and 2021. We had so many people come into the market. They're just oversaturated. Even though volume's only down a little bit, that like kills us.
Welcome to the ThinkFreight Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Werdine, and it's my pleasure to announce today's guest. It's Ben Tschirgi. He's the VP of Sales at Cowan Logistics. Ben, thanks for coming on the ThinkFreight Podcast.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. So you're in Florida, right?
Oh yeah, in sunny Sarasota, Florida. Not what you would think of as like a typical freight brokerage place to go, but it's worked for us. We're like the only brokerage in town, so it's perfect.
I see a palm tree. There must be some G-Wagons out front. It's exactly what I expect.
That's right. I mean, really, we show up to the office for like 2 hours a day, then we hit the beach,
Yeah, exactly. You're close enough. You just go to the beach. You can move all the loads from your phone. That's the name of the game.
Exactly. Yep.
Man, I appreciate you coming. I want to kind of dive into kind of who you are. You've got a really interesting presence online, and I think that's really, really interesting and fun. So why don't you tell the audience who you are, how you made it into this like crazy ass world of freight logistics?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So like pretty much everybody that winds up in freight, especially freight brokers, I didn't dream of being a freight broker all of my life. I wanted to be either a famous movie star or film director. And then after graduating, typical class, as one does. And then, I got fired from my first job after the first day of work because I lost a $200,000 camera lens. Well, I gave it to the wrong person who they found it eventually, but like by the time they found it, the producer was already like, I'll fire this guy. Which was great because I went from being like an unpaid intern on a movie set, working, from like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. to being a paid freight broker. I mean, like back in the day, like I was like, making like 30 grand plus commission. Like this is like, oh wow,
it's the life.
Like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, so I was just like ready to grind it out. And so I did for a couple years. I loved it, fell in love with it. And then I got an opportunity to do a couple different things. I moved down to Atlanta for a couple years, was a general manager for a couple years, which was awesome. I loved it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. And now I'm kind of joined the corporate overlord ranks. So that's been fun too. I mean, it's
selling out, man.
Each thing, yeah, absolutely. I'm a sellout now. Each thing has its own challenge, which I really like. I think the funnest part for me now is just seeing other people succeed, like empowering other people to find success. Because when I started, it was like we did the typical thing, which was just, you're crushing cold calls every day.
Oh yeah.
And, you're on Google Maps and you're just trying to grind it out and find customers and, just try to make it happen. And when I was doing that, I always kind of thought in the back of my mind, like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. I'm sure other people aren't all doing the same thing. Little did I know, like everybody was doing the same thing.
Sure enough. Yeah.
but I was still like, there's still got to be a better way. So that's what kind of excites me and like keeps me energized in this industry is like, there is just always thinking like, there's still got to be a better way. So each year, each quarter is just, that's kind of my mindset.
No, that's interesting and a good perspective because I feel the exact same way. Like I've been in the industry for like the last 6.5, 7 years. And like from my time at TQL all the way through today, like I just feel like there has to be a better way of doing like everything. There's just the logistics and freight industry is just so far behind in tech and in every aspect. So it's interesting, like even to today, like most places, most receivers only take, if they're like a lumper, only take T checks, only take a com check. And it's like, those are very specialized. Like it's not like like a standard throughout like the world or like throughout every other industry. It's like trucking is like the main hub for this now. And it's like, it's just very interesting to see how far behind everyone is. And I think that that's really changing, but I think we're still like 7 or 10 years away from like real widespread adoption in freight and tech.
Yeah, yeah. And you probably, I mean, know this from when you started. Like, I was still faxing rate confirmations. I was like, man, we are using faxes. Like, what
Yeah.
like portal did I hop into? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how far behind it is. But it's so tough, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so tough to like get everybody on board and adopt new technology. Is like you can't just bring along a couple people. Like, you have to get everybody. You have to get drivers, you have to get
Yeah.
dispatchers, and like, whether it's an app, whether it's whatever, like, to get everybody on board with that technology is tough.
It's tough. And the industry's so fragmented, like between owner ops, big companies, individual brokerages that are 1 to 3 people, and then the bigger broker, middle market, and big brokerages, enterprise level. You know, everyone wants to use either their own technology, the proprietary information, and it becomes it becomes a very strenuous task to get everyone to say, hey, let's do this and actually have some real like continuity in the industry, because I think that a lot of brokerage is live in the early 2000s mindset still, where we have to protect our shippers, we have to protect our data, we have to all of that data, all that shipper information, it's out there. There's no more hiding who your shippers are, because like you said, like you said it, like you can hop on Google Maps, you can see every shipper that's out there. You can every shipper's producing something, the name is out there, and it's just no matter what. um at a certain point, I think that brokerages and both carriers need to just, I guess, realize that fact that like none of this information is really proprietary. Some of your info is, but like very, very little of it is.
Right, right. But it won't stop brokerages from being like, feeling like everybody feels like, I think, like their
Oh yeah,
carriers belong to them. They own their carriers. And it's like,
100%.
you need to be here and you need to use our app and don't use anybody else's app. But all it means is a carrier has to download like a billion apps. Every driver has like a billion apps. So it's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking with someone who does like carrier reviews. I was talking with them the other today, and he said the same thing, where he was talking with a lot of carrier sales reps who basically said, I don't really want to review my carriers, because then it tells other people how good they are, and I need them for my freight. And it's just like, while I respect the grind and the hustle of that, but like at the same time, if your good relationship with that carrier um, doesn't give them enough freight to actually sustain them, they're going to end up closing their doors anyway if they can't, especially in this kind of market. So it's just like, it's kind of a catch 22, where it's like, if I don't if no one else knows how good this carrier is, they may go out of business, because I have XYZ
Right,
freight.
right,
But
right,
exactly, it's a tough thing to play, right?
right, right. Totally, totally.
Yeah. So let's jump into this. You make a lot of interesting and fun content on online, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. What's your purpose in doing it? Is it another sales resource? Is it just a tool? Do you just like to be creative? What's your reasoning? I think it's so
Um,
fun.
Yeah, so like prior to like a year and a half ago, yeah, a year and a half ago, I didn't do any social media at all.
Hmm.
And I was kind of like, like I I really want to get into social media. Like, I know nothing about it, and I'm such a boomer when it comes to social media. Like, I need to like try, but like now's my last chance. Like, if I put it off like
Right.
another 5 or 10 years, like, I'm done. Like,
You're done.
I've got to try. So I looked at it as like a challenge, as like, okay, I want to try this.
Yeah.
And I started with LinkedIn, and then I started to just like get on TikTok, get on Twitter, and like, I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of people doing a lot of cool stuff. And I don't
Mm,
think it was like that really like even like a couple years ago. Like
yeah, it
even
wasn't.
like freight Twitter is like, to me, like
It's
there's
booming.
some people, oh yeah, it's booming right now. Like, and like I respect the grind of whoever, Craig and like Dooner and like different people that have been
Oh
doing
yeah.
it for a while. But like when there were just like nobody, no freight brokers at least, on the platform. But yeah, so I did it as a challenge, but what I've found actually is it's a really good way, I mean, for sure to make connections in the industry. Also, I think I've been surprised about getting leads from it. We've got some of our best carriers I've gotten from social media, like just people reaching out. It's crazy. I
Yeah,
get, we get more carriers that way than actual
that's
customer
awesome.
facing leads. So it's like an awesome carrier tool, but I've gotten some customer leads from it too. But really, I just do it to have fun and to connect with people in the industry and learn stuff.
Yeah.
Is my main purpose of doing it.
No, it's that's awesome, dude, because it's so fun. Like you have a very like fun way of getting the content out there. Like it's definitely I wouldn't do it. Like I think that for me, like I just personally would be like I can't do this. Like it's not in my personality. So like major kudos to you because you like I feel like you get out of your comfort zone and but really also show like your authentic self through that. Like I feel like you're just like a really fun and cool dude who just like wants to move some freight. And if I had some freight to move, like let's give it to Ben because why the hell not? He's
All
fun, you know?
right, right. Yeah, I think that's the challenge too. Is like prior to a year and a half, ago, I was always of the mindset of like I don't want anybody to know anything about me. Like I want to operate in
Yeah.
this little bubble, and that's nice and it's safe and it's warm and it's cool. But there is something freeing about just being like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna like be myself and just like put it
Yeah.
out there, and and it's just yeah. Now I just kind of see it as like a fun thing, and it's like uh, a fun way to connect with people, but also just kind of yeah, put yourself out there and show people who you are. It's pretty cool.
I love that. No, I love that, man. Let's flip a little bit to kind of convoy. Like this has been the word on the street for the last like 10 days, 7 days or so. They just went under. It sounds like their tech has been acquired. We're not sure by who yet. But what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think ultimately happened? Like, there's a lot of speculation out there, and we can speculate a little bit here and just kind of like throw out that. Who do you think is ultimately going to end up with this technology? Who do you think bought it?
Yeah, I know. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm curious to know from you, from your perspective, just on social media. Like, do you feel like there was the big? I feel like there was the big debate after Convoy ceased operations. Was like, is every single broker out there kind of using this opportunistically to just like dance on their grave and be like, oh yeah, Convoy's gone, haha, see you suckers, or
Yeah.
or was that just sort of like people were saying that was out there, but it wasn't really so much out there?
I feel like it was both. I feel like I saw a mixture of both. Like I think that I think that a lot of companies just like really took it as an opportunity to just be like, this model doesn't work and just come to the traditional 3PL, which I think, in a way, like I don't think the venture back model is like going to the way that they burn cash to try and take up market share, the Uber freight way and things like that. Like it's a very cash intensive model as we saw, and it's not sustainable in a market where rates have gone so incredibly high. They just couldn't get enough capital, I think, together to keep things afloat. So but back to your original, I think that yeah, I think there were people taking the opportunity to dance all over Convoy, but I think it was a very small percent. I don't think that it was 50% of the people out there. I think it was 3 to 5% of people, and those people always kind of get highlighted more than the people showing respect for what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so true, especially in a market like this. It's like it's a penny's business, and right now it's
Yeah,
just like your margins are so thin. that you just have to be like, you just have to know your costs. You have to be operating so efficiently.
Yeah.
And it's tough when you've got, a team of, I don't know how many engineers they have. Like, it's just like,
A
it's a
lot.
totally different cost model. And like, um, you know, I mean, it's tough to be that model, but it's also still tough to be, I mean, I've seen the different reports of like, I saw Craig Fuller put out something like, as many as like, I don't know, up to like 25% of brokerages in like the 50 to $250 million revenue
Oh yeah.
range or something
Are
like that
struggling.
are struggling, could risk of
Yeah.
going out of business. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in, the convoy model and you're trying to automate and, have like, no human intervention required, or you have the other model of like the TQL way of just like throwing a bunch of
Yeah.
humans right out of college at it. Like, it's tough. It's tough right now. The strongest will survive, or the ones that made enough money during COVID to stay afloat. But
Yeah.
yeah, Convoy, I don't know. I for one am just glad that they didn't figure out in time for my job to be gone. So I guess in that sense, like, I'm kind of relieved. But
Right.
like, I I at first, when Convoy first came out, I was like, oh crap, like, I don't know, like, I think that I'm probably done. Like, I think everybody, we all
Yeah,
know, like,
same.
this job is super inefficient. Like, this industry, like, there's is so inefficient, but
Yeah.
it's it's so simple, but yet it's so complex at the same time. Like, it is very tough to automate it all away. And I think over, you know, multiple years, I've heard a lot of things about some of the smoke and mirrors that go on with digital brokers. So I'm not so surprised,
Yeah.
but I have heard a lot of great things about their tech too. So at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure, yeah, I have no idea who's going to buy their tech and like what they're going to do with it, but I wouldn't be surprised, if it still is making an impact on the industry, for many years to come. Like, no doubt
Yeah.
it's changed a lot of people's mindsets on like, what they need to be prioritizing, like what is possible, in freight tech.
You had said, you had mentioned like Craig talking about the amount of like mid-market brokerages that are struggling right now. How do you see some of those brokerages like? Do you see them needing to my opinion is they're going to need to force a good, probably 25% of their workforces probably out to really sustain these markets. Like a lot of bigger mid market brokerages have a lot of people, and that's, I mean, when margins are better, like when you're in a better market, you can really grow headcount and take those smaller margins, like and go into a hyper drive mode, so to say, to grow. But in these kind of markets, you really can't have that. You have to really be a lean brokerage. Do you see a lot of brokerages either just going under in the next 6 months to a year, or do you see them trying to shed a lot of headcount and that before the inevitable potentially happens?
Yeah, I think that it's very possible we're on the cusp of some change here, in the
Yeah,
freight brokerage world. I think because, like, you just, like to your point, you just can't grow in a model where your whole model is based on, we're going to hire 10 people
yeah.
and hope that three work out. Like, you don't
Mm,
have, because now in this market it's like, okay, now it takes 15 people to get those same three to work out.
exactly.
Like, that model to me has just always felt so unsustainable, and it's why, luckily I work somewhere where I was given the freedom to really experiment and try something different and break away from it. I really think brokerages, you cannot operate on that model, that churn and burn, hire and fire model. Like, you just can't grow in a market like this. So you're just kind of hanging on, and you're going to have
Yeah.
to shed costs. You're going to have to reduce headcount to a point where, just so you can survive and be like, well, once the market turns around, then we'll go back to hiring and then we can grow.
Right.
But it's like, you don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually just invest in a smaller amount of people, really invest in them, and grow with a smaller headcount in sales. And I think so
Yeah.
much of like Convoy and that whole tech, a lot of freight tech is focused on the operations side, which I totally get, because there's so much that goes into it, and
Yeah.
there's so much inefficiencies. But on the sales side, that's, I think, where there's been a lot less focus, and that's where, to me, there's a lot of inefficiency with especially mid-tier, mid-level brokerages, because when you have to have such a high headcount in your sales division to grow,
Right.
it's just, yeah, in a market like this, you can't grow, and so you're
You
just
can't
hanging
grow.
on.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I want to switch a little bit to, the sales side and kind of the importance of those like relationships right now, because you just said like a lot of that focus, and it's true, a lot of the tech focus is on the operations, because it can tend to be probably like the second most expensive part of a brokerage, right? You know, your sales team is probably number one, and second is your operations. So if you can automate a lot of that operation, it gives you more flexibility to have salespeople. So how do you what do you see as the importance of relationships for for brokerages right now, especially smaller brokerages? I see a lot of brokerages online on Twitter, on LinkedIn that are struggling, carriers that are struggling. How important is it for them to, especially now, focus on building those relationships to help them kind of weather the storm and for long term success once the market does flip again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, on the carrier side, certainly, like the temptation
Yeah,
now is because you're getting squeezed on both sides, and you've got the shipper that you're getting a lot of pressure from shippers, and rightfully so. They should be um, pushing back on costs. So the tendency is to want to push back on the carriers then as much as
right.
possible, because you have to keep some sort of margin in there. But you have to, I think you said this early on, like you have to make sure it does you no good to have good carriers if they're all out of business, if they're not in business six
Yeah,
months from now. Like, great, maybe you made some money for a couple months, but if you have to make sure you have that like open communication with your partners to make sure like that their rates actually do work for them. And a lot of carriers, especially small carriers, don't actually know what rates they really need. Like, I think a lot of times
definitely.
carriers just kind of throw out numbers of like what they think the market is, or like what they've heard. Like, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're making money or going to be able to stay in business. Like, um,
Definitely.
I think you have to really just, yeah, keep those lines of communication open on the carrier side, and on the customer side. Um, for for us, it's really been, I think, trying to sell all of what we do, and for
Yeah.
us, that's ocean, that's drayage, that's warehousing, that's truckload, LTL. Like, it's not just one thing. It's not looking at a relationship on the shipper facing side as thinking like, okay, I just want to get really competitive truckload rates, and I'm just going to find the cheapest carrier that I can from LA to Chicago, and then I'm going to be good. Um,
Right.
it's like, how can we help out on every part of their distribution network, their supply chain,
Yeah.
where we can add value? And that's not going to be like every single thing. I always tell people like, I hate LTL. LTL is the worst, especially like since COVID. Like, the claim rates are up, like the transit
Listen, we're
times
gonna
are
have to.
longer.
I just had Curtis on yesterday. We're gonna have to get you guys together. We'll hash
Yeah,
out these
I
LTL
know,
issues.
I know.
I was telling
I
him the
always like,
same thing. I said, I
yeah,
hate LTL. I will never move it again. He's
yeah.
like, but we had a good conversation about it. I agree. It's a weird transaction.
Yeah, I know, and like I love following Curtis and learning some
He's
LTL
great.
stuff, but yeah, I always encourage customers, like, I mean, whenever you can, go partials, or go like, do
Yeah,
not, if you care about your freight, do not, please do not send it LTL. But but I just want to make sure that, like, okay, what do we do best as a company? Like, what services, where do we provide value? And then let's focus on those parts in the supply chain, for a customer, like where we can add value, and where we can't, like,
definitely.
fine, then we can add, give referrals. Hey, Curtis, you want to move this?
Exactly.
Somebody that can move this. Yeah, because I don't want to touch it.
No, exactly. And I think that's the good way of going about it is, what I see of a lot of smaller brokerages and mid-market brokerages is they don't offer a wide variety of services, right? They're a brokerage and that's all they do. So when it comes down to it, I think a lot of um, brokerages missed the mark with some of the tougher areas. I know some brokerages that I've talked to have been at like they're scared to do like just cross border going into Canada freight. So it's like they miss opportunities with that. They miss
Right.
opportunities with rail. They miss opportunities because of warehousing. So it's about taking advantage, like what you said, of what you do best and really being able to um, kind of shine a light on that and be able to kind of um, show everyone in the
Yeah.
market that value, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And I think too, like so many brokerages, there's so much pressure on their employees for metrics and different things they
Yeah,
have to do during the day. And like, I'm going to be watching you. Like for us, what I
yeah,
hate micromanaging so much. Maybe a lot of people would probably consider me like the worst boss in the world, but my goal for every person that every rep that I have is like just be present for your customer and be willing to take risks. Like if somebody's like, "Hey, I've got a
yeah.
load that picks up in an hour," like just drop what you're doing, just go for it. Like just
Do it.
try to solve it. Like that's where you're going to actually build value and build relationships. It's not on like being like I need to make 50 cold calls today. I must press
Yeah.
button. Like you just got to go and just go for it. Like don't be scared, just go for it.
But I think that's a great way to go about it, man, because I remember times at brokerages that I've been at where I didn't feel that way. I felt like I didn't have that autonomy where it was I needed to jump through 50 different hoops to do something or check with different teams and all these other aspects. Whereas if I just kind of had a little bit of freedom, maybe it was easier to take some of those risks, right? So I love that you have that like approach where you're just like take the risk, like, do what you can do to like because I agree. Like there was times when I moved produce, if I could find a quick truck, like I was saving my customers' ass, and
Yeah,
that's what they cared about. And then they were like, "Hey, can you quote me on some more like regular stuff that we have?" And then it just you just kind of find those small wins and small ways in to show your value. And when you can, especially in tough markets, when you can find a truck very quickly for a load at a reasonable cost, if you've got regular, I used to have a lot of produce that picked up Laredo and McAllen, but I had a ton of regular carriers who ran that produce. So it was like I could come in at 5 or 10% under the market and still make a good margin. So it's all about those relationships and being able to tell your customer and show the value right away.
totally. Totally. Oh yeah, totally.
Let's talk about like unconventional prospecting. So you talked about like, this was something I did too, was Google Maps and doing things like that. But what is your thought of like going to the grocery store, going to the hardware store and like just looking at the labels on the shelf and writing them down and then going after a targeted list like that?
I love it. Yeah, I do. I used to do all those things. Take pictures.
Same.
Yeah, it's just be like walking around the aisles, like Trader Joe's and
Yep.
different things. Yeah.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
man. Oh, or like on a road trip going down like 95
The
and just
highway.
like yeah, absolutely. Like
You
seeing
see
like,
a
oh,
big
what's that?
DC and you
Yeah,
tell your girlfriend, "Hey,
yeah,
write this down." I
yeah.
got
Right.
it.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
scrambling like,
yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love all that stuff. What I kind of decided and what we went was like, okay, like let's take the prospecting totally out of our sales reps' hands. Like so our reps are not allowed to prospect. They don't cold call. And what we've decided to
Interesting.
do was just do all of that for them. Because I was like, okay, it's like 20 when we decided to do this, it was like 2020. It's like it's
Hmm.
2020 and we've got like and we are just on Google Maps and we've got a phone and like that's what we're prospecting. That's what we're doing. I'm like,
Right.
no. It should not be this way. So I think you leverage outsourcing, you leverage technology, and
Hmm.
then you make sure that your touch points on the customer are exactly what you want, and you want who is reaching out to the customer or potential customer to the shipper is exactly who you want to be talking to that specific customer. So for us, it starts really at the top. Like our
Mm.
executive team does all the initial cold outreach. So We use a
That's very
combination of
interesting.
outsourcing and technology to make that happen. And then from there, when we get a lead, we know, okay, if this customer has drayage in the port of New York, okay, great. I'm going to connect that customer with the person that gives that customer the best chance to succeed. So our best rep that does drayage in New York is going to get that customer. And
That's awesome.
and then only at the point where that customer is ready to be like, okay, we want you to quote something, or then that's where that rep moves in. So what that
That's
does, and what
awesome.
we found, is that actually, instead of having to hire 10 people and hope three work out, we can hire three people and then invest in them, and they will work
Mm,
out every single time. And uh, the reps not only don't have to cold call, don't have to prospect, but then all of a sudden they have all of this time, and so they have time to go on these wild goose chases. They have time to you know, to actually like serve their customers and be there for their customers, where they don't feel like, okay,
yeah.
like I don't know if this is worth my time. Like I still have to make a bunch of cold calls, or I still have to like, no, it's like they're going to be
Mm.
present each day, and they're going to be like just in the zone.
So they're like AutoZone, man, in the
Yeah,
zone.
yeah. In this, that's our motto. That's our new
So,
motto.
so basically, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a really good model where it almost sounds like from the prospecting phase of interest through them becoming a customer, they're kind of like an account manager to where their whole day is basically penetrating the account, finding those wild goose chase kind of freight, or if they've got something like a lot of drop trailer or things like that, they can actually search out those kind of avenues instead of wondering. Like I remember getting a lot of opportunities that were drop trailer and things like that, but it was like, do I waste my time going after this, or do I make 20 more phone calls that might lead to some actual full truckload spot freight or contract freight? So I think that that's very interesting that you guys like do it that way and have such a an autonomous model to where you give your reps that freedom to do those kind of projects, those kind of
Yeah.
like
Oh,
tasks.
totally. Yep. Yep. I thought last year and the year before, I thought like, I think this is working really well. Like this is working. Like everybody likes their job. They don't hate their job. We don't lose anybody. Nobody ever quits, and like we're growing. And then I was like, okay, well, everybody's growing. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if this, I mean, maybe it does.
Right.
But this year, I'm finally like, okay, no, this is really working. Like, we're growing our load count, we're growing our revenue. We actually had a record load count month in October. So that's pretty
That's
cool
awesome.
for us. We just crossed a new threshold on load count. So I'm like, I think this is the way. I like this way. I will never go back to the old just hire and fire way. That's no fun.
No, I think that's awesome, man. And I'm going to ask you like one more question before we kind of wrap up here. So, this is kind of an important one. And I really need like a really good feedback on this because I've been seeing it go around on Twitter a lot. Is broker tech collusion like the reason why rates are so low and why volumes are so awful right now? Like I've seen this so often. Is this the reason?
Yes. No,
Short answer, yes.
no, no. There are too many brokers and too many carriers. We
Yeah.
brokers and carriers made there was so much freight, and the rates were so good during 2020 and 2021. We had so many people come into the market. It was just oversaturated. Even though volume's only down a
Yeah.
little bit, that like kills us
You know,
because you know.
I think that there was just such a glut of freight. Like there was so much in all these ports and so much on these ships waiting to come in for such a long time. It made there was kind of like a faux like it wasn't a faux backlog, it was a
Yeah,
real
yeah, yeah.
backlog, but like a faux like indicator that we needed more brokerages or a faux indicator that we needed more capacity. We didn't need those things. We just needed better operations at these facilities. I think that was kind of the one thing. Obviously, rates did or volumes did go up a lot, but still, I think that like I saw and talked about yesterday in the newsletter, like there was over 10,000 new freight brokerages that came into the market during the pandemic. I mean, that's like one of the biggest growth explosions of brokerages ever. And same thing with capacity, like with trucks. We had such a huge run of new carriers coming into the market that really probably never should have came into the market. They didn't really know what they were doing. They just heard on social media and on the news and on TikTok that they could, turn this into a passive income stream and make a lot of money. So it's just, I think it's an interesting time. And I think that, we're going to see a lot of this capacity, a lot of the brokerages start to crumble, start to collapse.
Oh, that's a great tweet. Like brokering freight is like the best passive income ever. So there's something there.
It
God.
is.
Oh God.
I'll be looking for that tweet this week.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
No, I think that I think that that's I think it's interesting, man. I just want to say, Ben, I appreciate you coming on. I had a great time talking with you. You're welcome to come on the show anytime. Appreciate your time. Where can people find you? Where can people find Cowan Logistics if they're interested in what you do and how you guys operate over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, if you want to look me up, best of luck on my last name. Just enter BEN and then my last name's TSCH. You'll probably find me if you get that far. Cowan Logistics. Yeah, if you Google Cowan, we'll come up. You can go to our website. We have a pretty good website. It's an okay website. It's a good website. But yeah, either way, try to do your best to look me up or go find us on Google.
I'll make it easy for everyone. I will put Ben's links and all the information in the show notes.
Oh wow!
Because his last name is tough, so I'll give him some show notes. I'll link him on Twitter and LinkedIn so you guys can connect. If you guys like today's show, make sure you do give it a like and review, and don't forget to check out our newsletters. Those do drop on Monday and Wednesdays. ThinkFreight.io, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for coming on, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. See ya.